Hello everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Lines from the Bible that I cherish. I am your host, Stephen Dongel, and I'm really excited to start this journey with you. Now I know there are a lot of ways people approach the Bible. Some read it as history, some read it for encouragement, and some for wisdom. But as for me, there are certain verses that stays with me. They challenge me, sometimes they comfort me, and sometimes they even leave me with questions. And that's what this podcast is all about. Sharing those verses and having real conversation around it. So whether you're somebody who reads the Bible every day, or maybe you're someone who's just curious about what it has to say, I invite you to join me on this journey. So no matter where you're coming from, my hope is that this episode will give you something to think about, something to hold on to, or maybe even something to cherish. For this first episode, we are starting with a verse that have really made me reflect on love and sacrifice. It's taken from 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 15, where Paul says, "If I love you more, will you love me less?" So this one hits really deep, and I'm really looking forward to unpack it with you. Here Paul is writing to the Corinthians, a community he deeply cared for. He poured so much into them, his time, his effort, his energy. But despite all that, he noticed something strange. The more he loved them, the less they seemed to appreciate it. So have you ever felt that way? Like the more effort you put into your relationship, the more distant the other person becomes? That was exactly what Paul was struggling with. This verse speaks to a universal experience about one-sided love. And I don't mean just romantic love. It happens in friendship, family, and even in leadership. Sometimes the people you care for the most don't seem to value your love in return. Does that mean we should stop loving them? Paul didn't. He continued to serve and love them even when it was unappreciated. You see, it's a strange reality of human nature. We tend to often overlook what is always available. Think about it. If someone is consistently being kind, we might start to assume that their kindness is just normal and we forget about appreciating it. And even in relationships, people can even push away those who care deeply about them. Maybe because they feel unworthy, or because they do not know how to handle genuine love. This reminds me of how God loves us. He gives us, He provides, and He forgives. But how often do we take Him for granted? Just like Paul with the Corinthians, God loves us even when we do not love Him the same way, but His love remains. And that's a powerful lesson for us. To love not because we expect something in return, but because that's part of who we are as followers of Christ. This isn't just a Bible story, it's a real life. Think about parents who make sacrifice for their children just to be met with rebellion. And think about leaders who serve selflessly to get criticized instead of appreciation. So this verse challenges us to keep loving even when it's hard, even when it is unreturned. And let's be honest, loving without receiving love back in return is exhausting. It can feel like pouring into a cup with a hole in it. And that's exactly why it's important to remember why we love. It's not because we expect something in return. It's about reflecting His love through us. You see, throughout the Bible, love is portrayed as selfless. We can find a perfect example from John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son." See, love isn't about keeping score, it's about giving even when it's not deserved. And Paul really understood this well, and he lived it out, despite the pain of not being loved in return. Now this is key. Loving selflessly doesn't mean we're allowing ourselves to be walked over. Jesus loved people, but He set boundaries. He took time to rest. He spoke the truth even when it wasn't easy. So we can love people deeply, but at the same time, guarding our hearts and knowing when to step back. So what do we take away from this verse? Loving more does not always mean being loved more in return. But that doesn't mean we should stop loving. Instead, we love because of who we are, because it reflects God's heart. If this message spoke to you today, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced this kind of one-sided love? How do you deal with it? Drop your comments below and let's keep this conversation going. As we've reflected on Paul's words, "If I love you more, will you love me less?" we see a picture of selfless love. And if there is one love that truly embodies this, it's the love of Jesus Christ. Jesus loved us first even when we didn't love Him back. He gave everything, His life, so that we could be saved. And just like Paul, who kept loving despite rejection, Jesus continues to love us and invites us into a relationship with Him. Maybe you've felt distant from God, you've struggled to accept His love. But here's the good news. His love is constant. And salvation is a free gift. You don't have to earn it. You just have to receive it by faith. So, as we close this episode, I want to encourage you. Don't run away from the one who loves you the most. If you've never placed your faith in Jesus, or you've been running away from His love, know that He's waiting for you with open arms. Trust Him today. Thanks for turning into lines from the Bible that I cherish. If this episode encouraged you, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Until next time, stay strong, stay faithful, and keep loving. Bye for now.